bum bum ba dum bum 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 a boom boom ba dum bum bum. Boom boom ba boom bum ba boom bum ba boom bum bum ba dum bum bum ba boom bum 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 ba boom bum a boom boom ba dum ba 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 dum boom boom ba boom bum ba boom bum ba boom bum.
Yeah. Okay. So we said that so far we were talking about the Birur Shemban by accepting the Ha'ora of Shema, the Ha'ora from the Pnimius, and thereby it gives cognizance, but it remains, in essence, it remains the same, except it recognizes that there is the Pnimis, the Keser, and it gets inspiration, so to speak, from that, and it gets refined from that. That's any from Bik. But then there is, as we started saying, a Hamshocha after the Etzem of Shema, the essence of Shema itself. This is where the with the Shema, it's not only Ha'ora, not only the functional element of the Shema, but the essence itself. That's what we're going to discuss now. Well, I'm sorry, on the very top line of Yudala. Well, I'm Zois. But this Hamshocha that we're talking about, the Hamshocha Pnimis of Shema, Reish is HaHamshocha, the very initial aspect of this Hamshocha. Not as an afterthought to illuminate the Shem, the Chitzenis, the Shamban. But the Reish is Hamshocha, the initial impetus for this Hamshocha. He bechinas pnimius. is the pnimius aspect. Ho bechinas reish odatiko. Bechinas pnimius akes. This is what's called reish odatiko, the head of Atik, which is pnimius akes, and as we discussed this morning. Remember that discussion? Pnimius HaKesed. Pnimius HaKesed is what we discussed, was that this is high, and this is the origin. This is what enables the Oyin Rotz. This is the Alakus itself. It's called Reisha de Atika. Be'amshocha sois. This Hamshocha then, Poil Gamkin Habitl B'Shemban. This Hamshocha ultimately affects that there should be clean Shamban, that is the beetle in Shamban. So, what is the difference between this beetle and the beetle of the Ha'oras Shaman that I've said before? And the difference is Rak, except Shezehu, that here this beetle liyos bebchinas mitzius mamush. This beetle of a Shem Ban that is affected by the presence of Shema is such that it should be b'chinas mitzius mamash. That the beetle should be in a mitzius mamash. This sounds like mamash, a contradictory description. Ad sheyuchlal b'chinas Shema. This beetle is in the mitzias of Shamban itself, so that ultimately it will become incorporated with b'chinas Shema. It will become part and parcel of Shema. But it says over here, clearly we need to understand how these words are meant. Up until now we spoke about the effect of Shema on the Shemban. We said that there's a functional element, which means that Shemban recognizes that there is such a thing as Shema. But it remains Ban. Li is a b'chinas mitzius mamosh, means that the Shema permeates the very mitzius of Shemban, and thus Shemban becomes incorporated completely in the Shema. In our moshel of light and sight and visibility, this is like if there were to be a transformation, that the visibility aspect, the light aspect, would be in such refinement and such effect that the Gashmi itself would make a statement that its presence is not in the Gashmi, but it is the Ruach. There's much to say about this. I don't know if I want to deviate, diverge right now, but we did mention should we reschedule this to 9 o'clock? I don't know what's going on.
Sorry.
You're not the only one. We did mention, as I recall it, that the principle of visibility goes beyond the experience of visibility per se, goes beyond seeing an object, seeing that there is an object. The principle of visibility is seeing how the unity in everything. So that even though I'm at a distance from the object, I don't really sense that I'm a distance. It's all one reality. So, right now, this experience is still only functional. But okay, so let's discuss it for a moment. What is actually visible? What becomes part of the visible world? Really, the invisible part, the visible part is the intangible part, like color, the shape. What the object represents, not its coarse presence, its Gashmizika presence. But in visibility, like we said many times, that when you see a clock hanging on the wall, it's not the physical clock that makes it visible, that attracts your attention. That's not the message. This is not what you see. You see that there is that who put it up there. There's a human element in this. This is the visible part. The Gashmi is incorporated in that. But nevertheless, it remains Gashmi, which means that on its own, it's still not visible. It's visible because it supports this Shema element, the message and the significance. But it in itself is still Gashmi. What if we would project where it would be fully, but the purpose and the significance of something would permeate totally the very matter itself. It would be completely incorporated in its function, its purpose, and its meaning.
Again, what if the missed that.
If the Ruchni would completely permeate the Gashmi. We're talking about visibility, again, visibility as emotion.
Oh, so that's like a degree of seeing beyond just the coarse presence. You can see color, and then the next step was imagine if Ruchni per se would permeate and be visible.
Yeah.
Well, that's not quite what you said. Is it?
What?
I thought you said that the visible is intangible. Things like color, shape, they're intangible. And you said that there is something that's coarse material, which is not. So the way it was just rephrased,
No.
It's different.
No. It's not. But there's another statement that you miss, because this is what we're talking about. What if the coarse element, that which allows for the color to be shown, which is like the keli and the tzias, will become completely bottled and incorporated in the ruchni.
So then you would see things only what they're for.
That's right.
And not what they appear to be.
That's what things are. What is the reality of things? The reality of things is what they're created for.
Okay, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
This is what, if we would understand, in the first day of creation there was light, but there was no sun. What does it mean there was light? It means that the Gashmi did not conceal, did not present its own achievements, did not conceal the godliness that it stood for, that it represents. That's why the Gashmi itself was visible.
I'm having a problem here.
Of course.
If things were created to be seen on a certain level, then there had to be a purpose for the way they look.
So, and there is definitely a purpose in that look.
So, but to say that the way they look is really not what they're for.
Who said that?
Because you just said that when we see what they're really for, then what they appear to be will be stripped away.
No, you're not following. Not following. And this is the problem. We come in the middle. Don't focus in on the point. But we're saying here that there is ultimately a different kind of birur. There is an initial birur where there's just a ha'ora, just a function that's light hitting an object, like in our morsel, which means the object remains an object, a physical object, essentially invisible. And the light gives it a functional visibility. But it does not transform the object to be the visible element. Its function, its purpose, its meaning. The object remains a coarse object. With our intellect, we can see that this clock is not just a piece of metal, but it's a clock. And it's in a place for a purpose. But that's because we project it with our intellect, and because there's light hitting it, and so forth. What if that would permeate the whole Metzius? It would come to a total beetle into its purpose. That is the pshat pnimius. Okay, you got it. Okay, it's hard to project, right? But that's the real truth. Mm-hmm. That's the real truth. There is a sikha from Rebbe, from Friedrich Rebbe, where he says that when a person walks in the street and his mind is elsewhere, he's not really thinking what a Yid is supposed to think. He's empty-headed, just looking at the trees, just without any significance. He's not conscious of a godly element. Then the earth under him screams at him and says, "You bulach, you." Bulach means you. Boor, idiot. By what right are you treading on me?
Treading.
Treading on me. You're not any better than I? So now the earth screams, but we don't hear it scream. But in Losid Loving, that will be inaudible scream. Audible, whatever type of audibility is necessary. Like the Alter is in Tanya, that Losid Loving, a tree will not allow its fruit to be picked if it is in the Shnaz HaOrla.
It is?
What?
3 years.
The first 3 years. Because that's the reality. The reality of things is...
These are all examples of
is
what it
godly.
means that the Shem Ma will permeate the Shem Ban?
Right,
That's what it would be like.
right. This is where the Shem Ban will be completely incorporated in the very mitzias of the Shem Ban, the mitzias mamash, not just its surface and its finer part that is affected by the Shem Ma, but it's very mitzias itself. It's very presence.
So this truth exists, but it's concealed?
This truth exists, of course it is. But yes, it's not. It's concealed because right now we still have to be mevared the world. If this truth will surface, there is no more world to be mevared. This is what happened the first day of creation. It was light. What was this light? This light was not a physical light. It didn't need a sun. The light was part and parcel of the world. Now, you can understand what the poet says further. It says, Hashem said that the earth's light is good. Vayavdel, and he separated between the light and the darkness. How do you need to separate between light and darkness? Light and darkness cannot coexist at the same time. Here was a light, that light and darkness can coexist at the same time, because the darkness itself became light. So it says, no, I'm going to have a half a day dark and half a day light. All right. All right, we're on the fourth line from the top. Vehoinyan. To understand this principle, how the Shem Ban, in its full presence in the Metzias Mamash, becomes incorporated in Shema. How does this happen? In Yodua, it is known the Shem Ban hu bechinas gvuris. The Shem Ban is the bechina of gvuris. Let me give us a little bit of a hand on this. We hear this all the time. What is what the hu bechinas gvuris? Gvuris versus chasodim. Chesed by nature is open, and it easily relates to everything. It's an open flow, no restraint, no restriction. Chesed. Let's take an example, a very concrete example so we don't see anything. Aish HaChesed, a person who is by nature kind. He does a kindness. And you don't appreciate, you don't give him the proper thank you. Doesn't bother him. Because his Indian is the kindness. There's a story in Lubavitch, going back to Lubavitch, there was Rebbetzin Rivka. Rebbetzin Rivka was the Rebbe Maharash Rebbetzin, the Rebbe Rashab's mother. She was a very, very special woman. And so in Russia in those days, wintertime, there was no fruit. Like here we have fruit, it was stored and imported. There was no such thing as a fruit. And fruit was a necessary part of the diet, poshet for nutritional purpose, for vitamins and so forth. So the way they did fruit, they cooked preserves. Everyone knows what, and jelly, poshet to have a fruit, just concentrated fruit, so to speak. So the Rebbetzin Rivki was sitting, she had guests, and they served tea, and they served these preserves. This was part of the entertainment, part of the welcome the guest. They take a little bit on a piece of bread, and a piece of cookie, whatever it is. A lady knocks on the door and comes in, and she said, "My child is not well. I'd like to have a little preserves to give him a little bit strength." So the Rebbetzin gets up and gives her this and that's for sure. And she walks out and thanks you very much. Somebody who was present there at the time, when they left, when they grabbed to leave, so she went by to that house where the child wasn't well and was interested to see what the child. She saw through the window that actually the preserve was being served to guests. There was no child. They're sitting around and enjoying the preserves with their guests. So Gori says she ran back to Rebbe Tzadivke, and she says, "This is what I saw." So Rebbe Tzadivke says, "Oh, Baruch Hashem, I'll be the child as well."
I didn't hear.
The child as well.
This is chesed. This is pure chesed. There is not a presentation of an Metzius. This chesed is clearly a godly chesed, unbridled, unobstructed. That's why water, we say, is a morsel for chesed. Because water flows without any form. Whatever form you give it, it flows. Doesn't need any kind of form. It could be a broad waterfall, and it could be just a trickle. However we want it to flow, that's how it flows. No complaints. It's an interesting thing. I always mention this. He once went to the Niagara Falls, and it's a very impressive sight. And the waterfall goes down and falls. It's an immense amount of water, millions of gallons in a minute or something like that. It's a tremendous amount of water falling down from all in a big opening, a high, how many feet, pretty high fall. And as soon as it lands to the bottom, within 2 feet of the fall, but it's perfectly calm. They have a boat that they take you to visit the fall. You can come right up to the fall. There's no turbulence, nothing. Falls, settles down.
Made of the mist.
Huh?
Made of the mist, it's called.
Yeah. Maybe that's the boat. Right? I didn't go take the boat. It was enough for me to observe this thing. It's an interesting phenomenon. This is like a morsel for chesed. What's Gvura? Gvura is when every aspect identifies itself in its own mitzias. How do you want me to go? This way or that way? What do you turn me a cup? Here he opened, here he closed. Tell me how you want me to go. That's Gvura. So this is, just in contrast to the water, but the cloud, Gvura is in the pshat that every mitzvah is a mitzvah. It has a specific, precise definition. That's the Gvura. Gvura means limit. You can only access me in a certain way. Any other way you can't access me. So Shem Ban hu bechinas Gvuris. Ve'habitul poseh. Thus, when there is a beetle in this aspect, hu k'moi ba'avoida bebechinas hislahabus. It is similar to like the avoida in a hislahabus manner. Hislahabus means excitement. On fire. Verish peyesh, and flaming fire, hatshuka v'hatzimoin. Hatshuka v'hatzimoin, the desire and the thirst. Avoida v'chin Islam, but Verish peyesh, hatshuka v'hatzimoin is a moshel for the beetle of Shem Ban. This avoida between Islavus and Yishpeish Tatsuk V'Tzimoin is a wonderful avoida. Halabai, we should have this avoida when reflecting on the Lakus. We should have such a powerful drawing and being so excited, so flamed up in the desire and the thirst for the Lakus. However, what needs to be understood, she'ein zeh b'bchinas bitl mamash. But that's not the real beetle. It is a wonderful refinement that one should get excited about coming to a lakusa, excited about doing a mitzvah. It's a wonderful thing. But the excitement itself speaks about his mitzvahs. He is a mitzvah. He is excited. So therefore, it's not b'chinas bitl mamash. The whole his lahavus with his spoilers, for all his lahavus and his spoilers who b'chinas yesh adai. No matter what his desire is, even though he is thirsty for Holocaust, but his lahavus and his spoilers, when there is an excitement and fired up, that is b'chinas yesh. He's still b'chinas yesh adai. Is not one with that which is desired. However, as we said, this Islahavus is really a wonderful madrega, a wonderful sensitivity, and it ultimately has its effect.
Islavus is.
Huh?
Islavus is.
Fired up. Lahav is a flame. However, after this his lahavus, then he comes to a higher madrega. Ho bechinas habitul l'shema. The higher madrega is the true beetle of Shema. Shebebchinas beetle b'mtzius mamosh, which has the element of beetle that is not beetle hayesh, but beetle b'mtzius mamosh, meaning that his whole presence is bottle. Bli shum hislahabus, without any excitement, without any firing, vehuinyam. This is the Inyan that says in the Pasuk, Koil the Momadako. Koil the Momadako. This is a Pasuk in Tanakh. That by Eliyahu there was a lash and so forth, and Achal Alash, there was Koil the Momadako. A sound, the Momadako, a thin quietude. Quietude. That was a quiet coil, a very fine coil. The Momadako. The Tamon Koosim Malko. And this is indicative Koosim Malko, that the Melech himself is present. Tamon Koosim Malko, this is where the Melech himself is present. All the excitement is in the absence of the king, in anticipation, in understanding, in recognizing what we are about to see. But when there is the Melech itself, the beetle is so profound that there is no excitement whatsoever. This is called the Momadako. What is the difference in the anticipation versus the actual thing? This is the actual thing, this is the Melech himself. Anticipation, this is the oyer. This is the presentation. And there's a Metzias. You see, what a grand palace. What a grand chariot, whatever, a very grand show of force. All of these things are all representations of the graces of the king. But when the king himself is there, it's not even this is the real thing. And there is no excitement, there's no spoilers whatsoever. Total beetle. Why is there beetle? Because this element of the king himself cannot be translated in any other means but the presence of the king. When you have a palace, so you know what a palace is, and you'll be spoiled for the palace. You have some kind of an idea of what a palace is, and you can describe it and so forth. That's his spoils. The king himself, they have no idea what it is at all. You're not relating to the king by virtue of how you understand it, by virtue of your interpretation. You're relating to the king. A king represents, so to speak, the absolute reality, the truth itself, which is beyond any comprehension. And therefore, there's called the Momadako. There's no Hislavus. And Hislavus would mean to say that you have some kind of an understanding what you're looking at. There are two ways that there would be no Hislavus. One is when there is no appreciation whatsoever. Let's say a cat would not be mispoiled from seeing the king. A cat would not be mispoiled from seeing a palace either. The only thing that a cat would be mispoiled is she's a mouse. Everything else means nothing to it. It says two mice. Oh wow, look at this. But that's about it. So this is one way where there's no hispoils. The Alter Rebbe says that when people they come to shul, and this is the place where the Rebbe comes to listen and to participate and to be with us, and at the same time, people get involved in their own interests and talk about business and talk whatever, going into all kinds of different discussions that are totally irrelevant, oblivious to the oblivious to the presence of the king. So he says several things, that this is an insult to the king and so forth. But then also, it attests to his stupidity, attests to his lack of sensitivity. He's like an idiot, standing in front of the king, and he does not appreciate what he sees. This is one way that there will be no Islavus. That Islavus does not does not speak about beetle, bimtzias, does not speak about higher than yesh. It will speak about nothingness, idiocy. But what we are saying over here is that there is a beetle because it supersedes his intellect. And if he supersedes his intellect, how does he then appreciate it? He does not. This is the union that we have to think together in this. There's no way for me to describe this. If he does not appreciate it, there's no way to understand it. So why is he different than a cat?
I guess he called them Daka. I mean, he hears this. He hears the silence.
Okay, but he does not appreciate it.
But doesn't he have to grasp something in order to be?
Yeah, l'choira.
So
that's what I'm saying. I ask that we should think together. Otherwise, there's no way for me to put it into words. You have to understand, what is this about? If he does not understand it, so the cat also doesn't understand. And none of us will say, "Oh, the cat is great. Look at this." It does not make any noise when it sees the king. What is the Indian? Yeah, for this I think Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'achol b'may. If one goes and visits a king's palace, we have to project. Would there be a difference whether he's visiting his king's palace or a foreign king's palace? I hear by the Kuz Momadaka that there is a difference. What is the difference? Why is there a difference? Because we're not talking about being spoiled from the artwork and from the architecture. We're spoiled from the grandeur, from the greatness. Maybe it's spoiled from the artwork. That's a completely different thing. That's not a person he spoils. The person he spoils is Labus. Is because it's his. He appreciates what there is, what country, what he's a participant in. He gets excited. This is our king. This is what our country stands for. This kind of thing. That's the Islam. If you say if it's a foreign country, no, yeah, it's beautiful, but so what? Doesn't make excitement. Having understood that, now let's take this to the situation where he sees the king himself. If, when he sees the palace, his excitement is because that engulfs him. He's part of it. When he sees the king himself, his personal mitzias completely dissipates. He is one with the king. The king engulfs him. The presence of the king, because he ceases to be a separate entity completely. Becomes part of the reality of the king. In the presence of the king, again, we have to think. In the presence of the king, if in the king's palace, not in the presence of the king, he will stand, he will be very careful, he will be respectful. How will we stand in the presence of the king? He will stand in the presence of the king in total oblivion, total self-effacement. He will totally be unaware of himself. Therefore, what is his awareness? What causes this beetle? This beetle, this is the great thing that we need to understand here. This beetle is not the result of his appreciation. It's not the result of his awareness. It's the result of the fact that the king embraces him. The king's presence completely embraces him. Because that's what a king is. What is a king?
It seems to have to do with a degree, or some degree of his, to do with his appreciation of the greatness of the king. Meaning, when the cat was in the room, the cat was not affected. Or if he was if he was visiting a foreign king, he'd not be affected. So
that's right.
It has to do with his ability, his relationship.
No. This is exactly what I'm trying to point out. No, not at all.
Nothing to do with him. And
nothing to do with him. He can't appreciate it.
But then that would mean that if he was by a visiting king, the same.
No, you're not. Listen. It's not he who is affecting the beetle by his understanding. The beetle is affected by the king. Because the king embraces. Did you hear me say embraces him?
Mm-hmm.
The king is everything.
So he engulfs him, embraces him.
He engulfs him. There's no other Metzias. His whole Metzias becomes the Metzias of the king, part of the king. He's not affecting this beetle. He doesn't have the ability to affect this beetle.
So then what is the difference between him and the cat? If the king embraces everybody.
The king embraces everybody, not every cat.
No, okay.
The cat is not embraced by the king. A king is a king over human beings.
So is this saying that this kind of bittul always comes milamayla?
Yes, this ultimate beetle comes from Mila.
But there has to be some preparation before it happens.
Right, because otherwise he doesn't have the refinement. That's what he said. First there is big hislams, and ultimately he comes to the point where he comes to the king himself, and then there's called Moadak.
So this is the second. This is what follows after the first viewer of Shem Ban.
That's right.
Comes this level.
That's right. If he didn't have the first level, then indeed he would be like the cat.
Or he'd be like distracted by the palace and never get to see.
No, I'd like the cat. I mean,
Yeah,
nothing. He's not.
or
He doesn't know anything. That's right. It would be like something. But let's not insult him. He'd be distracted by the palace.
Yeah.
He would not be seeing the reality of what's going on. This is the beetle of, so the beetle of the etzem shem ma. That's the difference between etzem and ha'ora. The ha'ora affects you via its effect, by your being able to appreciate what it is. The etzem, there's no way you can appreciate the etzem. Affects you by its own presence, by its very presence. Okay, let's just go to these words over here and see. We'll go a little further and we'll see what happens. How much we have to. B'zehu b'chinas ha'chochma. This is the bechina, what's called chochma. Chochma is called koyach ma. Koyach ma. Koyach means an external functional. That's what a koyach function. But it's a function that is not really functional. It does not express itself. It's a function of ma, function of beetle. Now that Rebbe brought down Chochmah, let's examine this for a moment, so we'll have even a better sense of it. Chochmah, we always explain, is like re'iyo, like sight. And what's special about sight? In sight, we see the reality itself. How do we see the reality? I'm a separate entity from me. The answer is, I don't see it. It makes itself visible to me. It shows it to me, itself to me. In sight, the eye, as you always point out, the eye sees because of its transparency, not because of its observation. The eye is inactive in sight. The ear is active. The ear has sounds and vibrations, and it's active. The eye is totally inactive in sight. How does it see? It sees because the object is there. This is why in sight we say, even though we don't come in contact with the object, it's a much greater effect, a much greater impression than touch. No comparison. Because in touch, you are experiencing how you feel, you touch. In sight, you're experiencing the object itself.
A moment ago, we were looking at the king, who is etzem, who engulfs, embraces the subject. Why now are we looking at the way that?
That's exactly the same thing. This object, the reason you see it is because The object makes it is visible to you, not because you see it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, because
Touch the object. When you
Chokhmah seemed to deal with, like we said before, Makom Uzman, and now we just a moment ago were talking about in the king's palace. It's all etzem, no process.
This is that's right. That's why it's Shem Ban. If it were not Chokhmah in Zman Gezman, it would not be Shem Ban. But it has the element of total beetle. What is the element of total beetle? Total beetle, it takes what is given to it without needing to process it. Without the processing it. Just taking what's given. That is when there's an etzem element. That's my phone?
No.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, maybe.
Welcome to ID. The conference ID you have entered is not valid. Please re-enter your conference ID followed by the pound key. Welcome to the tone, please record your name followed by the pound key.
I'm Paltiel.
Thank you. You are participant number 5.
I know what happened, I just knocked it. Okay.
The Zeu B'chinas Chokhmah is this bittul. And the bittul, we just said it's got nothing to do really with the subject. It's all about the king. So where's the bittul?
The beetle is Chokhmah. Why is Chokhmah beetle? We mentioned before. Chokhmah, it's enough, it sees what the truth is. Doesn't need to be there. Doesn't need to absorb it. It sees it where it is. And that is how it relates to it. This is what we say it's called beetle b'mtzias. It becomes one with the reality itself.
That's the same thing as Bittul of Ma?
This is where, right, this is the level of beetle that's called Ma. But we're talking about Ban being incorporated in Ma. So this is the answer to what you're saying. The Chokhmah is a mitzvah because it is Mokim Uzman. But in Mokim Uzman it has that kind of level of beetle.
Excuse me, I thought we'd use Chokhmah and its relationship with Keser before to demonstrate a type of Hamshacha, which is where it's beyond, it's from outside of Hishtalshlus, in Hishtalshlus, but it's like it senses, it's somehow connected to Hishtalshlus because but both of them.
That's the initial thing. But after that beetle comes the deeper beetle. That's what we said.
We said before that they're not affected. But both of Chachma remains Chachma, and Keser remains Keser. But now we're using this to explain that they do change.
After it goes through this process, it reaches a deeper beetle. This process still has an infant hispoilus. Once it goes through this process, it reaches a deeper level of beetle, where it becomes one with the Keser, with the Shema. This is the first step, where it is Beseder Hishtalshelus, where it's only aware of the beetle of the Keser. But then, after it becomes aware of the Keser and it goes through this whole beetle, then it goes it reaches a different level, where it's not just aware of the Keser, but it becomes one with it. which was called
Chachma represents not the bittul of Bam, of the bittul of Ma.
Depends at what level. So the initial Chokhmah is still in Bam, but then they are called Meichim Chadoshim. That there's a new level of Meichim, a new level of Chokhmah. There's an initial Chokhmah where the Chesed and Chokhmah is, you would say, the Histalshelus relationship. Then there is a higher level where it is beyond the Seder Histalshelus. But one is prerequisite for the other.
But how can Chachma get excited like this avoda is mentioned where it's like his chalvus is like I can't imagine Chachma being that.
This is what we said before. We said there is in sight we have the sight as we experience it. Even though it's sight. But even though it's sight, but we are still seeing physical objects. And for us to understand what I'm pointing out, you're not really seeing the physical object, you're seeing its ruchnistic message. It doesn't, yes, true, but it's based on the Gashmi. Even though you touch it, don't see the Gashmi, you see the ruchni. But you still relate to the Gashmi through the ruchni, ultimately. Through the ruchni, through the Gashmi. Yes, I see the ruchni, but I know there's a Gashmi behind it. That gives it a presence. And there is a different level completely. As we said, there's a sight that is not energy, light energy dependent, but light per se. The oil shouldn't be Moshe. And there is no helm at all. Before we seal off, we have to always remind ourselves, even though we are in the world, and we actually not only seeing physical objects, but we're actually touching them. And to us, the tangible element is so real, we can't even imagine otherwise. We can't even imagine that this tangible element is really a creation. Of God, creation of godly creation, of Ruchnis into Gashmis. Ruchnis is an imaginary element. Gashmis is the real thing. So, as much as this is challenging to understand, nevertheless, we all know the truth, as we always repeat. The real mitzias of everything is amitis himotzoi, is the truth of His presence, not the physicality. The real mitzias of everything is the truth of His presence. This is where everything comes from. And just remembering this gives us an ability to understand and to relate to these presentations. Ultimately, the fruit of the tree will not let you touch it if it is over. Because everything exists only by the divine decree. a divine presence. And within 3 years, divine presence is not there for you to eat, and therefore you won't be able to eat. That's like we have the emotion, we speak about lesignev. It would be impossible to steal an object, because the object will scream, I don't belong to you. Confirm you?
That refers to the Bechinas Ma.
Yeah. Okay, so the thing is like this. If anyone there online...
There's someone in the kitchen.
What?
There's someone in the kitchen.
Yeah, my ankle, that's true. That's what I'm buying here. Okay.
How many do you need?
No, I got my ankle is here. I'll call him in.
I'm coming. I'll be right over also.
Okay.
Can you
fine.
bring the money?
What?
Can you bring the money? For that CC one?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll bring the money.
Thank you. I was about to say you're on the money.
Okay. All right. Have a good evening.
David Gabinay is sponsoring this Shabbos to bring.
Okay, this is it for this evening.
In
This is
honor
not
of-
matter now.
In honor of my spiritual birthday.
Yeah. Really.
Oh, it was
It's a very significant
no,
birthday.
not exactly. It was like it was Purim when I first came to 770.
Wow.
7 8 years ago. So it was good. First Reish Chodesh.
Chassidim,
Oh, no.
in olden days, I mean, Chassidim, the day that they first came to the Rebbe was their birthday. No question about it. Because their life was the real life. When was I born? There was a Chassid, Shmuel, and Kusha Lepler. Kusha Lepler was a very simple Jew. Very simple Jew. But he was fired up into Yerushalayim, with Amos Yisrael, with Amos Hashem. He came to the Alter Rebbe. He was a puyer, he was a very simple, farmer. Came to the Alter Rebbe in the middle of the night. And he came to Losna, and he figured that where there is a light, that must be the Rebbe's house. He had no idea where it was on the second floor. So and he was a balkoya, he climbed out from the second floor, came right to the window. And comes into the Alter Rebbe's room. And he says, Rebbe, knock me off my left side. Get rid of my left side. So the Alter Rebbe says, who are you? Anyway, and the Alter Rebbe says, I'm going to call the goy to get you out of here. I said, Rebbe, my goy is stronger than your goy. Anyway, this Kushe worked very, very hard and became a real chassid. He became very, very, very deeply understanding Chassidus, like uniquely. He was still the same course guy, but Chassidus, he didn't know to learn like a piece of Gemara, but Chassidus he really understood very deeply. The Alter Rebbe gave him a bracha on Yichas Yom. So he said, Yichas Yom, Rebbe, but nicht in Purische Yom. I don't want Purische, I want the Yom where I can understand the Lakus. Otherwise, I don't need them.
I don't want what?
Huh?
I don't want what?
I don't mind farmers, Purische, farmers' years. Purische, Puyer is a farmer
Oh.
who doesn't see a Lakus. He says, that I don't need.
You said the Myth Rebbe wrote a sefer for him, right?
One of the deepest Sporim Chassidus, Imre Bino, were written specifically for him.
What does that mean for him?
The Mittel Rebbe wrote certain sporting, a specific CD.
Oh, wow.
They were fit for this. Not everybody's fit for this. Yeah. So are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.